Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. The last video I put out was almost an hour long, way longer than I had wanted, so I'm going to try and keep this one short and sweet, a lot more bite-sized. And I wanted to, on my channel, start talking about game design and various aspects of it. I have an education in game design, and I just want to share sort of that information and that knowledge base with those who are trying to find their way and figure out how to design games themselves and whatnot. So, before I jump into any of those topics, the deeper topics, I think I decided to make this video. We need to establish what is game design in the first place. What is game design when we talk about it? What does that mean? So in this video, I'm going to cover 3 topics. We're going to talk about these. 1 is emotion, 2 is tension, and 3 is flow. These are sort of the 3 foundational building blocks I have come up with myself when we're talking about games and game design, analyzing how a game is designed. These are the things I've come up with in my own personal sort of compass, but at the end of this video, you'll see that this is just personal to me, and maybe you'll find different building blocks that work for you. So, what is game design? Are these game design? These things we have when we talk about game design, a lot of people bring up balancing and pacing of the game, tweaking numbers. There's systems design. These are often the rules and the capabilities that the player has. What you are doing in the game and how those interactions inform the gameplay. Appeal for some people. Game design is about the visual interest, how the game looks, game feel, how the game feels to play. And some people who know nothing about game design, but they're familiar with the concept of games and video games. When I tell people I'm a game designer, they're like, "Oh, yes, okay, you do a lot of coding then." Well, maybe, yeah, well, maybe, kind of. I mean, yes, coding is important to games, but I don't think it necessarily falls under the realm of game design myself, but it is sort of the foundation of a game. It feeds directly into those systems and rules and capabilities that we talked about up here. All of these things, with the exception of coding, maybe, all of these things fall under game design for sure, but these are all like little pieces, and even beyond these, there's a lot more small pieces of that go into game design as a whole. This is like, you need all of these things put together and to get game design. All of these things should feed into each other to achieve emotions. It's really important that your game is attempting to achieve an emotional payout. And it doesn't have to be a single emotion. It can be multiple emotions. But how the player feels when they play your game is incredibly important. And it's incredibly important that you keep this in mind when creating your game and you understand the emotions that you're delivering. So here is something that was shown to me during my time at school. It's not like, you don't have to obey. This is just a chart to sort of give you a concept of emotions and stuff. This is called the emotion wheel. There's a lot of different kinds of these. If you look this up emotion wheel, there's different layouts and stuff. But it's just to display, like, here's a selection of potential emotions that you could choose. So, I think these are core emotions. They are sort of larger buckets. So you can choose, maybe you want your players to be happy. Maybe you're making a horror game. You want them to be fearful. These are big buckets you can choose from. And the farther out you go, the more specific these emotions become. So maybe you want your players to feel courageous or creative. And it's really important, I think, to really understand how your game is delivering these emotions and how you're getting this emotional payoff. Another thing is emotions can be complex. Maybe you want your emotion, you're making some sort of like noir detective mystery puzzle game, and one of your emotional goals is intrigue. Well, intrigue is quite a complex emotion. Humans are complex creatures. We're capable of feeling sad and happy at the same time. It's a weird thing to grasp your head around, but like these aren't all exclusive to each other, right? And it is more difficult to deliver a game that can make you feel sad and happy at the same time than it is just to, deliver a portion of the game that makes you feel sad or a portion of the game that makes you feel happy or whatever. Just things to keep in mind. Your game succeeds when it elicits emotions from your players. This is something foundational to games, I feel. Very important. You want your game to deliver emotions to your players. But you succeed when you're intentional about what emotions or emotion they feel. Going back, if your game elicits an emotion, that's great. But if you want to be a good designer yourself, you have to be intentional about which emotions you're picking. Then that's when you can say that you've designed a good game and not just made by happenstance a good game. So I would encourage you, if you're new to game design, or even if you're a long-term game designer, it's really important when you start a project or you're trying to understand how your game functions, you want to keep in mind an emotion when you're approaching building out your game holistically on the big picture. A horror game, a lot of the times attached to the fear. We're trying to get the player to feel afraid of the monster. Very straightforward. Keep that in mind whenever you're building your game from start to finish. Keep it as one of the foundational building blocks of that experience that you're trying to deliver. And players will attach themselves to that. They'll whether they're cognizant of it or not, they'll attach themselves to that idea, and the game will sing much better than it would otherwise. Alternatively, as other examples, there's triumph and victory. I'm having a hard time picking out the right words here, but stuff like triumph is very tied to maybe something like an action RPG such as the Dark Souls series. Frequently you're being beaten down, and then when you finally do overcome that difficult enemy or the difficult boss, that feeling of triumph and achievement is really unmatched if you've ever been able to play those games and it connected with you on that level. Something else I was thinking of was satisfaction. I think satisfaction, it's not the best example because you want all games to be satisfying, but when I think of one of my favorite genres being rhythm games, satisfaction is basically how I would describe the emotional tie-in for rhythm games. I mean, you get into a flow state where, inputting the buttons at the correct time, it's just the most satisfying thing I can think of in games. I can't think of another game that makes me feel more satisfied than a really good rhythm game where you hit that satisfaction level of getting all of the button inputs, perfectly on beat. Next, this is something else that you might hear frequently in the topic of game design. Games are a series of decisions, usually referred to as interesting decisions. let's dig into it a little bit deeper. So, what are some of these interesting decisions you can have? They can be big picture, like which character am I going to pick in my roguelike playthrough for this run? Which upgrade am I going to choose after beating this encounter? How am I going to spend my limited resources? Maybe I have gold, or I'm playing like a strategy RTS city builder thing, and I have wood and stone, and you have a limited number of resources. How are you going to spend them at a given time? When am I going to press the attack button? For like an action RPG, oftentimes games such as those nowadays have locked animations, and once you hit that attack button, you're locked into your attack animation. You can't do anything until it's over. There's, do I move left or right? When I encounter this enemy, should I go left or right, or maybe even straight towards them? Micro decisions from moment to moment like these. Anything from second to second gameplay to larger, broad, macro decisions. They're all very important, but let's understand why. Why are decisions good for games? Decisions stem from tension. At the end of the day, this is my thoughts on it anyway. And tension is created through oppositions. The example of resources. I want to get stronger, but I have an inventory of things, and I have to deplete my inventory of things to increase my stats or whatnot. There's a trade-off there. There's an opposition in player capabilities and collection of items that I have and all that. Tension, oftentimes I'm going to be talking about tension through mechanical means such as this, probably because I focus on systems design, mechanics and stuff. That's sort of where I excel. But tension can also be created emotionally. You can have a horror game that often has childlike qualities. I mean, there's been an explosion of Five Nights at Freddy's and the Garten of Banban series, and these mascot horror genre plays with the idea of children's toys being horrific entities that want to kill you and murder you. And that idea in itself is a form of tension. There's these two oppositional forces at mind. Usually children we think of as very innocent and playful and whatnot. Let me just look over my notes here real quick. I'm kind of blitzing through this. I want to go quick, but make sure I'm hitting everything I want to say. Okay. Yeah, let's go. So tension in itself makes decisions interesting. If I don't have to spend resources on my various buildings or whatnot, then that decision isn't really interesting anymore. If I can just plop down these buildings wherever, it's not really even a decision anymore. Oftentimes, there may also be a time limitation, or maybe this is the only time that you get to make this decision. Moving on, we have consequences make decisions meaningful. So if we have tension makes them interesting, consequences are what makes the decisions meaningful. And the consequences being the outcome of the decision. If I choose dialogue option A or B, how the NPC reacts in a story-driven game is what is going to make this decision meaningful. And meaningful is going to be, it's going to have a different meaning to different players. Some people don't attach themselves to the narrative payout of games. That's a very intrinsic thing. This is going to be a topic maybe in a future video, intrinsic versus extrinsic. Some players are only attached to those mechanical outcomes, such as the gaining of resources or the completion of a level, things like this, growing stronger. And it's really important for you to release your tension so that you avoid points of frustration. It's important that you control your tension to control the emotional state of the player. If you understand the tension that exists within your game, you can control that tension, and then in turn, you will be in control of the emotional state of your player, which as we've established, and my philosophy is the foundation of what makes games interesting, or what makes a game good, what makes players connect with a game on a higher level. So it's important you build this tension up, but then it's also important that you release this tension occasionally at the correct moments. And this is something that comes with practice. So in a horror game, you don't just want to tease the player and tease the player and tease the player. Or, on the flip side, instead of just teasing them, you don't want them to be constantly in a state of panic, running away from the monster. You want to switch things up, and that's going to be displayed here on this graph. You've probably seen this before. This is a famous game design graph that describes the flow state of games. On one axis, you have the challenge of the game, how difficult it is, and on the other side, you have the skill of the player. Basically, your goal as a designer is as you increase or decrease the challenge of the game as the game goes on, you want to make sure that the player's skill level matches that. So you hit this flow state. If the player is not skilled enough and the challenge is high, you hit into this. I had that backwards. If the player is very skilled, high skill, but there's not enough challenge, they get bored. The game is too easy. There's not any interesting decisions going on. That's what this challenge is. This doesn't necessarily have to represent the difficulty of your game. This can also represent the progression of your game, or whatnot, novel ideas. If the game is too challenging and they don't have enough skill or they don't have enough information, you hit this point of anxiety. This is where frustration lies. So if we have the monster chasing you forever, this is just going to go up and up and up into anxiety land, and the player's going to start to check out. They're going to start to be like, what the heck? Like, I need a breather at some point. Like, this tension, this line that's going up and up, it needs to come down at some point. This graph, in particular, this flow state, is not good. This line right here, this line that just goes straight up, this is not what we want. No. Bad. This is what we want. Now, this is flipped. Apologies, I'm just grabbing skills on the other side now, difficulties down here. But this is what the release of tension is doing here. So what we want is to have this flow state. We're still existing within the flow channel, but what the player's experiencing, it has some variability to it. You're going to raise the tension and then make things get easier for a little bit. It's really important, too, that this isn't just the same sort of sine wave going back and forth and back and forth. You can tell here there's like a smaller hill, and here there's a bigger one, and then this gets even bigger, and then it goes down way, way higher. This irregularity to it is also very important. And here I'm showing, this doesn't need to be difficulty. Again, this can be information. So this is important if you're thinking about maybe you have a strategy game that is very information dense and you have a lot of things that you need to tutorialize. If you truncate all of that tutorial information into a small window, but the player's not ready for that information yet, boom, you're going to come right over here into anxiety land. They're going to be overwhelmed with all the information. This is where bad tutorial land. Players don't want to read. I mean, this is a whole nother topic as well, tutorials and stuff. Players don't want to read forever. They don't want to read at all, to be honest. But, if you have pop-up panels explaining your game, at a certain point, you've probably encountered, like, players just click through them. They stop reading. They don't digest the information well, because they're just checking out, man. They're just doing this. Boom. They're getting frustrated. They just want to play the game. They want to get back to this point. And you're overloading them with information. Another topic while we're on this subject is repetition. So this comes back to when I was talking about that sine wave going the same way over and over and over again. Players are really receptive, either consciously or unconsciously, to repetitive patterns. Humans have very excellent pattern recognition skill. If you're repeating the same thing over and over again, either this flow state or if they're stuck, like in Dark Souls, they're stuck on a hard boss, or if you have a difficult platforming bit in your platforming game, and the players they're failing at the same point over and over again, I'd encourage you to just take a look at that. Take a look at those pain points and see if the players are being given a clear path or an alternative path or an alternative tool set to approach the problem. Because if they keep approaching it in the same way, if they don't have any other options or abilities in their tool belt to approach the repetitive thing that they keep bashing their head into, that's usually also really bad. That's we're going to come up here into anxiety land, frustration land. So at the end of all this, these three topics I've talked about, emotion, tension, and sort of flow state, the marriage of emotion and tension and controlling them well. At the end of the day, game design is an art form. You can take everything I just told you and throw it out the window if you want, because it's no size fits all solution in game design. It's an art form. Everybody doesn't paint the Mona Lisa in the same way. If you give somebody an artistic palette and tell somebody, random person A from the world, you tell them to paint a beach scene with a hammock, and you tell person B to do the same thing, they're going to go about it in different ways. Like, you're going to end up with two completely different pieces of art at the end of the day. So there's no one correct way to design games. It's not like a formula that you can follow per se. But I do feel that there are important concepts you need to understand. And those important concepts being the ones I presented here today. Emotion, tension, and the flow state. These are things that have been studied in relation to games for a long time, and they're not the end-all, be-all of game design, but they are very important to understanding the fundamentals of game design. And if you understand them now, if you get a complete understanding of them and how they function and how they relate to games, then it's a lot easier to sort of deviate from their foundation and go a different way and put your own spin on it, and ignore some of the things that they teach us. And that's the end of the talk here today. I feel like this video definitely was a lot shorter than the other one. Thank you and welcome again. This was a random template I just pulled off of Google Slides. I think it was for initiating a new employee into a company, and I saw this last slide and I thought it was funny out of context. Thank you and welcome again. It it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I hope you are able to take some of these concepts, really think about how they relate to a game that you're creating, or maybe a game that you're playing at the moment. Try and really analyze how the designers controlled the emotions that they're trying to convey, the tension that they're building, and how they relate to your current enjoyment or engagement within the game. Until next time, I don't know what the next video is going to be. I'm probably just going to wake up tomorrow, write a few things in my notebook like I did today, organize my thoughts a little bit on the next topic, and talk about it on another slide deck like this. See how it goes. See ya.